Mark Marshall with theproaudiofiles.com and guitaristmarkmarshall.com. Recently I was working with artist Elizabeth and the Catapult. Elizabeth brought in a really interesting song that sonically reminded me of being in the half state of dreaming. I wanted to try to find a way to embellish the sound of the piano to psychologically put you in that state of mind while listening to the song. The song is basically a solo piano with a really lovely airy vocal on top. We recorded it in her apartment. She has a lovely old Mason Hamlin, and I used 2 ribbon mics on it. Nothing particularly special about the way I mic'd it. And once I got it into Pro Tools, I applied some EQ and a Fairchild compressor, but it still wasn't enough, right? And I wanted it to sound somehow almost slightly broken and distant. So in order to do this, I did something slightly unconventional. I created a bus on the piano tracks, and I sent it to an amp emulation plugin. For this particular amp emulation, I was using this Marshall plugin from UAD. You can use Amplitude, or Logic has some built-in amp plugins that would work. I picked the Marshall because there's a certain mid-range that exists in Marshall amps, somewhat from the closed back cabinets, the 4x12s. There's weird phase stuff that happens amongst those 4 speakers. Let's listen to the piano and hear what's happening.
To the land of lost things, give away all that we have. Take us to the land of lost things.
Let's listen to the piano with the compression EQ I have on it. There's a little grit there already, and that is coming from this Fairchild plugin that I'm hitting fairly hard, as you can see. One of my favorite adjustments on here is this headroom knob that can help induce a little bit more harmonic overdrive into the signal. Let's listen to the piano with the amp plugin included. Let's listen with the plate reverb added in. One of the things to think about when you're doing this, you may have to make a decision on how much overdrive you want. Some of this you can tackle by adjusting the plugin and how much gain is on the amp sim. I kind of got it to a point where I really liked the tone, and I didn't want to back off the gain of the amp. On one occasion, she would hit the piano dynamically and play a little harder, and sometimes that'll feed the plug-in a little hot and it'll overdrive too much. So one of the ways to deal with this is to go into Pro Tools and to automate the sends. At certain points where it's really hot, we can pull the send back a little bit so it doesn't hit the amp as hard. If you look at this selection here, you'll see that there's a point where the dynamics come up, and I drew in some automation just to pull it down so it doesn't feed the plug-in too hot. One of the things worth noting about using heavy compression or an amp sim on a piano is that it has a tendency to magnify some of the mechanical noises of the instrument. For instance, pressing and releasing the sustain pedal will be considerably louder than just a non-compressed signal. We were really cool with that on this track because we thought it kind of added to the sound. I encourage you to experiment setting acoustic instruments through effects that wouldn't normally be associated with it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and any interesting combinations that you've come up with.